What is going on, grinders? It's Chief. It's TJ. We are in the building, or shall I say, in the booth. It is the morning grind. This is for Monday, May 27th, 2004. Welcome aboard. It should be a fun slate. It's Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day to everyone. Happy Memorial Day to our veterans. Happy Memorial Day to everyone that serves in the armed forces. We appreciate everything you do, and I'm sure you're going to see a lot of activity during these baseball games that try and honor our armed forces. My father-in-law was in the armed forces. He was in the Air Force. I've got countless family members from every branch, TJ, even Marines. I've got members of my family from every branch, and so we salute you guys. We thank you for everything you do. I've heard tons of stories, and so I know it's not easy when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And so once again, everybody, we just thank you and welcome. It is the morning grind. TJ, how's everything going? And TJ told me he got a little nap in today. I got a nap in today. TJ's a new dad. I'm a seasoned dad. He'll be a seasoned dad really soon. How are things going?
Doing very well. Like you said, well rested. But man, I feel a little bit like I'm on. It feels like it's Monday already that we're recording this because I slept for 3 hours this evening, and it kind of came out of nowhere. It was unexpected. It wasn't planned to be that long, but it was funny. I didn't realize how long the NASCAR race this evening was. And so, I fell asleep just before the start of it, and I woke up 3 hours later, and I totally thought that this race would already be done, and it was not even 2/3 of the way done yet. And so that was surprising since I'm pretty new to the NASCAR streets. But yes, looking forward to diving into the nice 8-game slate we got for Monday.
Yeah, for sure. It is an 8-game slate, and we are going to hop right in. It's Boston. It's Baltimore. They are in Baltimore. Folks, who do we have pitching today? Interestingly enough, we've got Criswell and we've got Irvin, two guys that are, shall we say, middle of the road to below average. We've got Cooper Criswell on the other side facing a potent Baltimore offense. TJ, how are we feeling about Cooper Criswell?
I don't really think I want to play any Cooper Criswell going up against Baltimore. He's had some games that have actually been pretty impressive. He's had some down games. He's had some strong games. But it's just Baltimore's a strong offense. I don't really think I want to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, TJ, I think we're in a situation where we're going to see another guy that's cheaper that we'll probably have more interest in. I don't think it's Criswell today. On the other side, we've got Cole Irvin. Now, we have seen Boston struggle from time to time, but I also think we're going to see them struggle with guys that actually can put up strikeouts, TJ. I'm not saying, once again, Cole Irvin is not a bad pitcher. He's a good real-life pitcher, or at least average, but he's definitely not a strikeout pitcher. How are you feeling about Cole Irvin?
If this game was in Boston, I don't think I would have any interest in him whatsoever. But with this being in Baltimore, it's a good pitcher's park. I think I like him more than Criswell. I'll say that. There's a couple people in the range a little bit cheaper that I think have some higher upside, and then even a little bit more expensive as well. And so he kind of, I think, falls between the cracks for me. But in 150 lineups, I don't think it would be ridiculous if he has an okay projection.
Yeah, I get it at 7,600. Not a bad price. He is a guy that can get you 20 fantasy points. Now, I'm not saying he gets that today, TJ, but he is a guy that could get. And once again, I think he's average, an average MLB pitcher, and he'll have some games. I'm okay if you want to keep him in the pool. I wouldn't play him in single entry or 3-entry max. That for sure that I wouldn't be doing that. We're going to head to the Boston side. Obviously, like I said, they're the away team. Going to get a few more at bats today. How are you feeling about the Boston offense versus Irvin?
I don't really think I want to get there. Like I said, if this game was in Boston, I'd be much more interested in the bats and not in the pitching. But I don't think I want to be getting to any Boston bats really outside of Rafael Devers. Rafael Devers is kind of in the play every day tier, but I probably won't be getting any full stacks here.
Yeah, definitely think I'll be getting to some Devers as well. Like it's always good, TJ, I think, to just play good hitters. And, because you never know when that 3 home run game is going to come. Now, obviously, we expect it to come against bad pitching, but I mean, with good hitters, it can happen at any time. Agree with you there. On the Baltimore side, TJ, this feels like a spot where we might be able to play a few Baltimore bats. Yes, some of them are expensive. What are we doing with the Baltimore offense?
Baltimore, I think, is just too good of an offense to ignore, even against a solid, okay pitcher like Chris Well, in a good pitcher's park. Gunnar Henderson is super expensive, but he's been one of the top 5 bats in all of baseball this year. Probably more of a mini stack territory for me because of their prices. Pick 2 of, in addition to Henderson, pick 2 of Rutschman, Westberg, Mountcastle, Santander, Cowser, O'Hearn, as opposed to going 5-man, but I do like the mini stack.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely with you there. I wish, TJ, Rutschman was a little bit cheaper, like more like $5K. I wish Henderson
may have just lost Chief for a moment. I see he's freezed on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
He's back. We're good.
Yeah, man, I hope it's not my internet. So let me go on a small mini rant since I know we're going to have a short show. Spectrum, like, come on, guys. We don't have to do this. Like, things will be going well, TJ, and then we'll get this little random spot that just it clunks out for 30 seconds and then it's back. I hate that. At any rate, I do like the Baltimore offense. Let's go over. We're at Toronto at the Chicago White Sox, the reinvented Chicago White Sox. Chris Bassett facing Mr. Nastrini, Nick Nastrini to be exact, in. TJ, Chris Bassett faced Chicago White Sox. Obviously, the White Sox are an offense that we have been targeting recently. How are we feeling about Mr. Chris Bassett, the hound dog, the hometown pitcher?
I think he's one of the best pitchers on the slate going up against this White Sox team that is not very good at all. Bassett has had some down games this year, but he's been fairly consistent. He's not a huge strikeout guy, but he's a guy that can go over 100 pitches. And so against a team like the White Sox, that can end up turning into 7-8 innings really quick. So Bassett is somebody that I'm quite interested in on the slate.
Yeah, let me just say Bassett is a guy that I haven't played as much, TJ, but and quite frankly, I very, very rarely play Chris Bassett, but I do think he's definitely viable today. Pickings are slightly slim, I think, for good pitching on this slate today. So I'm with you on Bassett at 8,200. Nick Nastrini feels like a big, quick no to me, TJ, but I don't want to overstate the obvious. I'll give you an opportunity to talk about whether or not we want to play Nick Nastrini. How are we feeling about him?
No Nick Nastrini against the Blue Jays in this spot. No, can't do it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Toronto offense feels like a really good offense. TJ, this offense I never get right. That means Nick Nastrini is about to throw a gem in 4 innings. 4 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts. I am exaggerating, but my goodness, whenever I decide to click the Toronto Blue Jays button, TJ, the Blue Jays are probably at the top of my gutless rankings for MLB, only when I decide to play them, though. How are we feeling about the Toronto Blue Jays? This team should be smoking today, and I am very afraid. TJ, Toronto, talk to me.
Yeah, I'll still be playing them in this spot. It'll depend a lot on the lineup, but they oh my goodness, they just need to clean house with a lot of management and a lot of upper management because they lost again on Sunday and they put up 11 runs. They lost 14-11.
TJ, Kikuchi, though, he buried me early today. Well, I told you I didn't play a lot, but I did take Kikuchi over 5 strikeouts on the Pick'em sites. TJ, can you tell me how many strikeouts Kikuchi had today? 4. The answer is 0.
0. What?
0 strikeouts. Once again, TJ, like I told you, whenever I start clicking Toronto Blue Jays buttons, what can go wrong will go wrong. Jeez, the Blue Jays have been a nemesis of mine. Feels like my whole DFS career. All right, TJ. But yeah, back to Toronto. I know I interrupted you How are we feeling about this offense? I think we want to play this offense today, despite my jokes and the seriousness of them. I do think we want to play this offense. Anybody in particular you want to highlight?
Dalton Varsho is the top option on this offense, followed by Danny Jansen, as weird as it feels to say that on a team that has Vladimir Guerrero and Bo Bichette. Having said that, Vlad and Bo have been hitting the ball a lot better lately, and I think they're definitely underpriced now. So I love Bo Bichette 4,500, Vlad 5K, and then you mix in one of Turner or Schneider with that as well, and that's what I think I'd go with. Another thing that feels weird to say, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is hot. He's been hitting the ball so well lately.
IKF is definitely streaky for sure. On every team he's been on, he gets streaky. Yeah, I love that call.
And he's hot right now. So don't feel free to include him in your stacks as well.
Yeah, man. Listen, you know it's getting rough when George Springer is under 4K. Under 4K, TJ. And
I have no interest.
Yeah, and this is a guy we were paying 4,500, 4,800, sometimes at the 5K range. And I mean, man, what is going on with George Springer? Mr. Gerd, we got to call this one out, TJ. This is incredible material. Vlad is just grounded out as we begin to speak. Boy, Vlad will just crush you with the ground out. Bases loaded, 1 on, 2 on. Vlad Guerrero Jr. In play, out. Boy, you hate to see it.
Oh no, Ronald Acuna Jr. diagnosed with torn ACL.
Yeah, that happened today with non-contact too. So listen, TJ, it was non-contact. We've already lost Strider. Now we've lost Acuna. So as a Braves fan, TJ, you can imagine how we all feel right now. I mean, I feel terrible. Just not the season we had hoped for. So injuries can definitely just derail a season big time. So yeah, on the White Sox side, TJ, and I do like Toronto best today. They're more of a full stack team for me. On the White Sox side, are we playing any White Sox against Bassett?
No, I don't think so. I'm going to be playing a lot of Bassett, and I'm not stacking any of the White Sox against them.
Absolutely not doing it as well. All right, we're moving to what I consider a pretty juicy game here. Kansas City at Minnesota. Joe Ryan on the mound, facing off against Alec Marsh. Obviously, Alec Marsh is 8K, Joe Ryan 10-3. Joe Ryan has been fairly good this season, TJ. Definitely has been a guy that we've seen pick up strikeouts. Alec Marsh has also had his share of strikeouts against Minnesota, who isn't striking out a lot on the surface, but I do feel like recently we've seen them strike out a bit more. How are you feeling about Alec Marsh facing off against a pretty high-powered Minnesota offense from a power perspective?
Yeah, I don't really think I need any Alec Marsh in this spot up to 8K. That does scare me because he's been pitching pretty well. Like maybe I'll include him in the 150 pool. But I don't really think I want to be playing him against Minnesota.
Yeah, I get it. Like, here's my question, TJ, because we do have some pitchers on this slate that we can consider. But generally speaking, I feel like this is such a weak slate. Like, I think I would play Marsh over most of the 7K guys, not all of them, most of them.
I took it back. I agree with you. Like, there's no high end pitching I want to pay for.
Yeah. That's all it is. Like, I'm not. Listen, if this is a 12-game slate, we've got a couple other guys. I probably don't get to Marsh. It's just, and I know you said you're with me. I just think the slate says we might have to play some shares. So that's Alec Marsh. Joe Ryan. How are we feeling about Joe Ryan? Top spin on the slate against one of the better offenses on the slate.
I'm out. I'm hoping he's highly owned. I'm hoping he is highly owned going against the Royals, and then I'm just going to play the Royals. They, to me, are an offense that I just don't really want to target pitchers against. They're maybe not elite, but one tier below elite if they're not in that top tier. And so I'm actually going to be out on Joe Ryan at 10-3. I'm going to focus on the cheaper pitchers. I'd rather play Alec Marsh in the same game. No Joe. for me, I think.
Yeah, here's my thing. It's the same scenario for me on a larger slate. I probably, you know what, TJ? Let me say this. I'm gonna say this, and then I'll say what my original thought was. And I am gonna side with my original thought, but I want to put this out there. I think we have to assume Joe Ryan may, in fact, be really high owned because of what the slate calls for in terms of these other pitchers and just in terms of skills. So I think he's going to be high owned. I'm with you. If I'm purely playing it from an ownership perspective, I definitely think we could fade Joe Ryan. At what fantasy point number would you be feeling uncomfortable with Joe Ryan's? Is it on this particular slate, CJ? If I told you right now, Joe Ryan gets 25 fantasy points, are you still comfortable with the fade?
That's the number where I begin getting uncomfortable, is 25, because the price difference is so large between him and all the other pitchers I'd consider playing. Yeah. And so because of that, as long as I can get two guys who get 20, 18 to 20, I'm okay if he outscores them by 5, 6, 7. Anything over 25 is where I'm sitting there being like, all right, I made a mistake.
Yeah. And I mean, those are my thoughts. And I mean, we've seen Kansas City limit pitchers. So I think I'm with you. For me, TJ, I think I'm going to let ownership decide what I do with Ryan. Although I do think he's coming in as one of the highest owned pitchers today, hands down. I think because he, from a skills perspective, I will say this. If Lodolo was all the way healthy, Lodolo would have been the guy today, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's all the way. And so I think Ryan's going to get way more ownership. I know we spent a lot of time on that, but I thought that was a really big pressure point for the slate. TJ, Kansas City offense, you said you're going to be fading Ryan. You definitely want to load up on Kansas City. Talk to me about these bats.
Yeah, Kansas City, always love them, basically, regardless of who the pitcher is. So the higher owned Ryan is, the more I'm going to play them. If he comes in, 25% owned, maybe I don't stack them a ton, but Bobby Witt is one of the top plays on the slate for me. Any slate. Sal Perez is getting priced up there a little bit, but he's having a really strong year. Michael Garcia at third base is one of my favorite plays. He should be up over 5K now, and he's just not. I do like this lineup better with Michael Massey in it. He's on the injured list right now, but we got a cheap Nelson Velasquez who's been playing a lot better recently. I like this as either as a full stack or as a mini.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely like the Kansas City offense, and I'm with you, TJ. I do think Joe Ryan is going to get up there today. So I am with you. I definitely want to get some pieces of Kansas City offense. One of my favorite players, I mean, Vinny Pasquantino, man, just continues to do well for his price point. Obviously, you can play Witt. And then one of my favorites, TJ, like you talked about, has been Michael Garcia. He's been one of my favorites. That doesn't mean he's rattling off 20 every day, but I do think he's been hitting really well for this team. So I've enjoyed rostering him. Over to the Minnesota side, we are going to play some Marsh, but I don't think that means we have to fade all the Minnesota bats today, TJ. How are we feeling about some of these guys from the Twins?
Yeah, they're cheap enough that I don't think we need to do that either. Jeffers has seen his price come back down a little bit after spiking way up. Buxton is back and starting to look a little bit more like the Byron Buxton we know, and he's only 4,500. And so you can full stack this lineup when you start mixing in the Kirilloffs, the Mirandas. Miranda's been starting even right on right. Carlos Correa is still cheap. And so I don't love Minnesota, but they're definitely staying in the pool.
Yeah, I just think some of them are a little bit too cheap. I'm so glad you brought up Carlos Correa. He's been a guy that's kind of been like if shortstop's been wonky, but shortstop's been really good this year. But on some of these types of what I like to call boutique slates, TJ, I think he's been really good. I've even gotten him for 4K flat some of these days, and he's been pretty productive since coming back from injury. So he's definitely a guy that I wanted to highlight today. And then, of course, you talked about probably my favorite hitter roster this season has been Ryan Jeffers, a catcher of all things. But TJ, I feel like he's been one of the guys I've constantly gotten right in the right matchups. And so Jeffers has been a guy, you talked about Kepler. Kepler's price back up now. He's been good this season, bad at 301 average. So, I mean, I really I think the Twins as a mini stat or pulling together some of these pieces are really good. Here we go. St. Louis. The ball should be flying tomorrow, TJ, as in the area of the country that I live in. It's supposed to be about 90 degrees. Probably going to be something similar in Cincinnati. They're in the Great American Small Park. Ball should be flying out of the ballpark. However, I still think this might be a slightly good spot for one pitcher, maybe two. How are you feeling about Lance Lynn? Let me just say Lance Lynn is one of my favorites today. TJ, Lance Lynn, how are we feeling?
I would love to hate him, but he's too cheap. He's simply too cheap. He's got a matchup going against Cincinnati that even though they're very good, they also strike out. And I will be stacking a lot of Cincinnati against Lance Lynn. Yeah. But ownership his ownership will depend a lot on how much I play him. If we get 50% owned Lance Lynn, I will X him out. But he's probably going to project as the best SP2 on the slate.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I do think Lance Lynn is going to get some ownership today. The reason why I'm intrigued a lot by Lance Lynn is I think Cincinnati's going to roll out 5 to 6 righties, and that's where he's going to come across really well. You know, he's got to face a team, TJ, where they're just going to pile up the lefties. I'm not thrilled about that. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, they might. We'll see. We'll see. They may just play the lefties. They did the same thing against Yamamoto. We'll see how they handle it. If they give him 5 lefties, I'm probably less interested because the lefties have been his thorn for quite a while. But if we see about 5 or 6 righties, TJ, Lance Lynn is going to be my favorite cheap pitcher, which is why I was a bit more disinterested in some of the other 7K guys. On the other side, we've got Lodolo. He's coming off the 15-day IL, through a bullpen session. Like, how are we feeling about Lodolo here? His last start out, which was just about 2 weeks ago, or a little over 2 weeks ago. Yeah, just about 2 weeks ago. He threw 98 pitches. I assume he's in the 80s range, TJ, and he's facing St. Louis, which isn't the strongest offense, but the strikeouts are starting to come down. How are you feeling about Lodolo at 9,800? A guy that's had some strikeout upside, but has also had some issues this season.
He is, I'm assuming, going to be a really low-owned pivot off of Joe Ryan today, especially with that little IL tag next to his name. It really depends for me if we get any news on a pitch count. If we hear literally nothing and he's super low-owned, I will take some shots. If we hear he's going to be limited to 75, 8 to 80 pitches, I probably just won't play him because he's too expensive. If he was 8,900 instead of 9,800, then maybe I still take some shots at that price. But if I hear nothing, or we get he'll be able to get over 90 pitches, he'll be able to get over 85 pitches, then I'm more willing to take some shots on Nick Lodolo.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen Nick Lodolo pick up 10 strikeouts before. Like, it's not impossible. I don't think he gets 10 today. I think if he's on 7 to 8 is reasonable. But I'm with you. If we can get some type of full pitch count confirmation anywhere around 85 pitches, I think I am in for sure. TJ, we've got my boy Stevie. He's in the chat. He said, "Am I doing okay with the Acuna news?" Quite honestly, I'm not, man. Like, it just sucks. Like, it just really sucks because, we already lost basically our ace pitcher for the season. And now we're losing Acuna, which is one of our best bets. I know he wasn't having a super all-star season or MVP season, if you will. But, I mean, he's still one of our best players, and now we've lost him for the year. And what's even more sad for me, TJ, is Chris Sale is pitching the best he's pitched in years, right? I mean, in years. Ronaldo Lopez is pitching the best he's pitched in years. And if we had Strider, I think we had a really good thing going in our ball club. And now you just lose Acuna, and it's like, look, I know these guys are going to go out and play, but losing someone like that, man, it's terrible. So at any rate, TJ, Stevie, thank you for asking, man. I hope everything's okay out there. Glad you're safe, brother. TJ, are we playing any St. Louis bats against Lodolo today? who might I add, TJ, are playing a late game tonight on ESPN. The game got pushed back. They don't have to travel far. So I'm not saying they got to travel far, but they will be getting in late tonight and then playing early tomorrow. How are you feeling about the St. Louis offense? Are you factoring that into any of your decision making? Or are you just saying, like Derek, they're terrible, so I'm just not playing them no matter what?
I would love to say they're terrible and I'm not playing them no matter what, but Lodolo coming off of the IL, maybe he just is a little bit off. And then it's a great Canadian small park, great American small park with, like you said, potentially 90+ degree weather. They're just so stupidly cheap. Not that we need it, but they are so wildly cheap. I definitely think they're in the discussion. Imagine at the beginning of the season thinking we were going to be seeing Nolan Arenado at 3,800 and Paul Goldschmidt, MVP, 2-3 years ago at $3,700. So the entire team is wildly cheap, and I think that keeps them in play, adding on to the ballpark and the weather. Oh, got the mute on still.
Oh, Jesus, man. The ultimate mute as the host. How terrible is that? As we speak, Mr. Gerg says Goldie just sends one out of the park. Home run for Paul Goldschmidt. TJ, once again, that was kind of a trick question. I do like St. Louis today, as you said, because of these prices. Generally speaking, I don't want to play them, but man, when most of the team, TJ, is under 4K, I mean, I think you just got to consider them just for that reason and hope they can poke a few runs in. Over to the Cincinnati side, obviously, these guys are facing Lance Lynn, and we talked about the fact that I do want to wait. I want to see the lineup here, TJ. Five lefties, I'm probably out on Lynn or much lower ownership in the field. 5 or 6 righties, my ownership's going up. At any rate, Cincinnati, how are you feeling about this team today? And probably what's going to be one of the best hitting environments on the slate outside of Coors Field?
Like you said, it is very dependent on the lineup we get, but I think this will probably be one of my favorite stacks on the slate, especially if Lance Lynn gets like 40, 50% ownership, which he may because of how cheap that price tag is. Like Joe Ryan, the higher owned Joe Ryan is, the more I like Kansas City. The higher owned Lance Lynn is, the more I will like Cincinnati. It will depend a lot on the lineup. It obviously hurts that TJ Friedel's on the IL. It'll depend a lot on if Heimer Candelario is back for this one. Candelario missed last game. He was scratched. If he is back, I will like this team more. But you still have some lefties that can do some damage outside of the Dela Cruzes. Fraley's had a bad season, but that could turn around at any point. You got Benson and Ford, who haven't had great numbers so far, but we know that the power can be there, and then Hertubis is still 2,500. So I am going to be liking Cincinnati against Lance Lynn. That's probably heavily owned.
Yeah, and they could also play Nick Martini. They played him as well. So, I mean, like I said, or like we've said, there will be some options. It's just whether or not they decide to deploy all of these lefties today, TJ, for those. So, hold on. Give me 1 second, TJ. Josh Gillum, is the Mavs game over?
I don't know.
I haven't been watching it. Josh, please let me know whether or not this game is over, sir. Please let me know.
There's 35 seconds left in the game.
35 seconds left?
Yeah.
Okay. And is Dallas up by a significant amount?
Yeah, they're up 9.
Okay. All right. Cool. I just want to say, Mav.
I made a single entry single game team for that game today. And it was looking so beautiful, but I went with Derek Lively MVP. And so it's just sitting there like just below min cash with Derek Lively at MVP, who got knocked out in the, I think, early second quarter.
Don't you hate that?
Yeah.
Don't you hate that? All right, folks, we're going to get back on the rails. That was our sidebar. We do like Cincinnati, Washington, Atlanta. Let me take a minute to pour a virtual one out for my boy Acuna. I know I've talked about it, but man, this was terrible news. And I know everyone like isn't a Braves fan, but I do think when like star players go down, like Mike Trout goes down, it's just you hate it for the sport because you want to see the best players out there. Acuna is definitely one of the best players, and he will not be suiting up the rest of the season. We've got Washington at Atlanta, by the way. Charlie Morton versus Mr. Parker, and that's Mitchell Parker. And Mitchell Parker has actually been pitching pretty well, or had a pretty good outing against Minnesota the last game. But he's facing an offense, will be without Acuna. But the beauty of the Braves is they still have a lot of good hitters up and down this lineup, TJ. How are you feeling about Mitchell Parker, one of the cheaper options on the slate today?
Yeah, I think Mitchell Parker is somewhat in play, but I'm probably not going to get there just because I don't really think I'm going to need the salary. But this team is obviously going to be worse without Acuna. But it's still Atlanta. There's still Matt Olson, Marcell Ozuna, Ozzie Albies. I'm not going to be Harris. I'm not going to be playing Mitchell Parker.
Yeah. Big no for me with Mitchell Parker as well. Charlie Morton on the other side. We're going to call him the pitcher's pitcher, TJ. One of the veteran pitchers in the league, still pitching fairly well, still getting strikeouts. How are you feeling about him at 8,600 facing Washington? A lower strikeout offense, but not power in every spot of this offense. Charlie Morton, 8,600. What are we doing?
All I hope is that
yes!
What'd you hit?
Woo! Listen, man. DJ, I hit a big one, brother. I hit a big one with that Minnesota game. That's why I was wondering when he said it was over. I'm like, bro, is it over? Is it over? And I think it's now over because I'm seeing. Listen, and TJ, the thing is, I put this in last minute. I had no intentions of doing it, but I put something in on pick 6, and boy, did it pay off. Boy, did it pay off. Please continue, TJ. What a great way to end the day. What a great way.
Okay. I like it. Due to name recognition and the slate not having that many strong pitching options, I really hope that ownership just heavily congregates to Joe Ryan, Charlie Morton, Lance Lynn, and I'll just play all the other guys. I don't want to play Charlie Morton against the low strikeout Washington team. He is significantly worse against lefties, and they're going to be absolutely loading up the lefties against him. So much of this slate, I know I say this about basically every single pitcher we've talked about, but so much of this slate is going to depend for me on ownership of these guys. So if Charlie Morton is low owned, yeah, I'll play him. But my hunch is that he's going to be higher owned. He's I guess he hasn't actually been as much worse to lefties this year as I thought he was. The ISO is worse, but the under the surface numbers actually really aren't. So that could be something that turns around a little bit. Regardless, I don't want to play him, so I hope I cannot have to with him being highly owned.
Yeah, man. Same here. I get it. And so hopefully, I think I'm going to play Morton because I think he might also be a necessary evil, if that makes any sense. Like, That's why I think I'm playing Morton today. 8,600. I think he could limit the Washington offense. I don't think the strikeouts will be there. Like, I think he gets 4 or 5 strikeouts, but I think he could go 6 or 7 innings if things swung the right way. And if that's the case, TJ, I think he could get to 20 fantasy points. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, so over to the Washington offense, TJ. How are we feeling about Washington's offense facing off against Morton?
Pardon me. I I wish there was expensive pitching on this slate because everybody's so cheap on so many of these lineups that I'd love to be like, yeah, you know what? They're cheap, so I'll play them. We got Eddie Rosario. We got Joey Gallo. Even Luis Garcia has been having a really good year. He's only 4K. Abrams isn't doing as well as he did at the start of the year, but he's still somebody I'd want to stack up. But you just don't really need the salary on this slate. So it's another one that is like, if Morton's going to be 30+% owned, then I will make sure to include Washington in my pool. If he's low owned and then I'm playing him, then I don't really feel the need to get to any Washington.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I'm going to play Washington today either. But the Atlanta offense, TJ, I feel like even though Acuna's out, we're going to be very interested in stacking some Atlanta bets. How are we feeling about Atlanta?
Yeah, absolutely. Going up against the lefty, the one lefty really that's going to be in the like Harris is the one I'll maybe downgrade a little bit, but Olsen, he's probably not going to be played very much. He's still super cheap, and I don't care that it's lefty. And so you pair him with some Ozuna, some Albies, and then two of Darno, Arcia, and Duval. It's looking like a really nice stack here. This is a deep enough lineup that even without Acuna, they are still very interesting. They're just more affordable now.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we've got our boy D Johnson in there just kind of talking about, playing Ozuna and Harris, but like Duval, Kalinick, we're going to have access to some of these guys and, not having Acuna, I hate it. Ozuna's not that far off, but now we've got one less expensive bat, TJ. And so the Atlanta stack just got a little bit cheaper overall, probably for at least a week or so until we figure out how they're going to, continue to piece together this lineup. My assumption is right now, and I can be wrong, TJ, my assumption is Duval becomes an everyday player. Or that's my assumption. But once again, they could do something different and, Brent call a guy up or something. But I'm gonna operate under the assumption that Duval becomes an everyday player for a while until they figure out how they want to handle the overall situation. And if that's the case, then Atlanta's stack right now against Mitchell Parker is very cheap. Here we go. Short slate. We're moving to Cleveland at Colorado. Gomber facing off against Curry. Xavier Curry, TJ, may not see a whole lot of pitches. We'll see how it goes. I don't think he's a guy that goes past 85 pitches. I think that's probably his max. I know the Colorado offense is dreadful, but I don't want to play Xavier Curry. How are you feeling about Mr. Curry?
I just don't need a 5K pitcher on this slate. And so There's no need for me to take the shot on him in Coors. Probably not going to take up a ton of pitches.
Yep, there it is. No Curry. I'm not playing Gomber either. I don't think you're playing Gomber, TJ. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it's like we talked about on the last show. I think we did together where Gomber, you said you were going to play him. I said I wasn't. Then he lit it up. And so you were that one in Verlander. You got both of those over on me. You were right. I was wrong on. And he's 5,800. Right. So it's like, again, I might want to take some shots, but you just don't need it. So I don't think I will.
Yep, I'm not playing Gomber. Let's move over to these offenses. Now, TJ, typically I do not play Coors, okay? And it's not that I'm telling people to not play Coors. It's mainly because I always think the ownership is going to be incredibly high. We do have some offenses that we can play, but I think I'm a little bit more interested in Coors this time because of the smaller slate. Let's talk through Cleveland. Who are we liking?
Jose Ramirez, I think, is the top. Jose Ramirez is the raw points top bat on the slate. I'm okay with the lefties as long as they're in the lineup, the Jimenezes and the Nailers.
Hey,
but I think David, I
hate to interrupt you. Guys on the live stream, listen to me. Please bear with me. My light fell down. My lighting it fell down for some reason. TJ, if you'll continue, you're going to see me take off my headset, sit it down. I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to get my lighting set back up, but it won't be very long. Sorry about this, guys. TJ, please, analysis.
You are all good, my friend. Not to worry about it. Going up against the lefty Gomber, I think David Fry is somebody that I want to get to as much as I can. Just a guy that has been absolutely smashing lefties. He was a Spidey bomb recently that came through. So David Fry is probably the guy that I'm looking to get to the most on this team. I'm just looking up his ISO right now. 457 ISO to lefties so far this year, and a small sample size, 52 plate appearances. But a guy that has been absolutely smashed in the ball. Naylor's still been really, really good in a lefty-lefty. We're probably going to get Tyler Freeman leading off 4,100. Hopefully they're not too obscenely chalky, but I do have a lot of interest in Cleveland in this spot, with Ramirez, Fry, Freeman probably being my three priorities, and Josh Naylor being very close behind them. And then on the Colorado side of things, it's going to be like after Curry, probably a bullpenish game. And so, I mean, obviously it'll be the bullpen after the starter, but with him not going very far, we're going to get a lot of bullpen here. And I don't typically love stacking a bullpen game, but in Coors, I don't mind it. It's not like these guys are all that expensive. Chris Bryant is the one Rocky I basically will just go, X, this guy's done. I'm not playing Chris Bryant. But I want to load up on Ryan McMahon and Ezekiel Tovar. I think they're two of the better bats on the slate. And then basically just anybody else that fills up a stack I'm cool with as well.
There it is. I'm with you. I definitely.
Quick loss of Chief there. Is he going to be back quick? There was the quick reset of the Spectrum internet. I figured I'd give it a little brief pause. But there it is. It's been back. We'll see. We'll see how quick we get Chief back here. But I like the Rockies stack quite a bit. They fall behind Cleveland for me, but I don't think there's a single offense I've liked that we've talked about so far that I would like more just from a straight up raw points perspective than Colorado and Cleveland, other than maybe Atlanta. Every single other stack on the slate is basically just like, hey, if the pitcher is going to be highly owned, I want to get to a lot of them. That's how I feel about Kansas City. That's how I feel about Cincinnati going up against Lance Lynn. And so, yeah, that's these are the top two offenses on the slate, I think, that we've talked about so far, except for maybe Atlanta behind them. Next game on the slate, we got the Cubs at the Milwaukee Brewers. Robert Gasser, who was supposed to start the other day, and then they went for a bullpen game instead, going up against Justin Steele, who has been working that pitch count back up, but has not been the Justin Steele we are used to seeing. Before we cover that one, Chief, you got anything you want to get off your chest first about the Coors game?
Yeah, I mean, I think I like both sides of the game today. And while I hate playing the Colorado offense, believe it or not, man, the strikeout rates on this Colorado offense are starting to come down a little bit. And so in certain spots. And so I think this offense today against Curry could be really good. And I don't think they'll get as much ownership as Cleveland. I think people are more willing to pick on Gomber. I mean, yeah, more willing to go against the Rockies than attack or utilize the Rockies bats. And I just want to say I do think Colorado's a good stack today. I'm assuming you were moving to Chicago and Milwaukee.
Yes, sir.
All right. Chicago is at Milwaukee today. We've got Steele facing Gasser. Gasser, a guy that has been, let's say, not showing a lot of strikeout upside, not really has limited the runs in some, but has not walked a lot of bats, TJ. I don't see a lot of upside here for Gasser. I don't see maybe even as much upside for Steele. I do think Steele's a good pitcher. I think he could be a great pitcher. I think he's still working himself back. I think by it is June. It's almost June. To me, Steele's kind of mid-July is when I'll start seeing if Steele's kind of work the rust off, because his spring training did get cut short. I think either the game before the last one or the last game going into the season, he had to work his way back. How are we feeling about Steele? I'm assuming neither of us is playing Gasser.
No Gasser. I want to play Steele just because he's always been a pitcher I have liked. He has gone from 67 pitches to 68 to 74 to 88 to 93. So from a pitch count perspective, he should be basically back in this game. It's just a matter of where the performance is going to be there. Milwaukee is a team that they're very high power. They're very good, but they also do strike out at a fairly high clip. And so I guess it depends on the lineup that we end up seeing. We probably aren't going to see a Jake Bauers in the lineup. And so if we, I want to play him. I do. It's just I don't know if I need 7K Justin Steele without seeing it once first. I feel like I just need to see him with one game looking more like himself.
Yeah, and he was close, TJ, and then he ran up on the Braves, right? Like he had an okay game against Pittsburgh. And look, when I'm saying close, I'm saying what I was trying to look for, TJ, was the strikeout upside. Like he went 5 2/3, 88 pitches, picked up 7 strikeouts against the Braves. He went 6 1/3, 5 Ks, but he just gave up too many runs. I think he's close, TJ, for what it's worth. I just can't do it against Milwaukee. Milwaukee good. So that's why I'm not playing Steele. And then Mr. Gerd, you're on fire tonight, sir. Robert Gasser Can, TJ. That's what he's been called. I think we like both of these offenses probably. I think we might like the Cubs a little bit more than Milwaukee, but I definitely like both sides. TJ, Cubs, Milwaukee, how are we feeling?
Yeah, Cubs are a fun stack because you can just play any of them in any amalgamation that you want because they're all so cheap. I don't mind Bellinger in the lefty-lefty. Suzuki, Morel is probably my top option here. And then, like, hopefully we get, like, a Horner leading off in this spot maybe against the lefty. I do really like the Cubs today.
Yep, for sure. I love the Cubs. I think I think they could just really beat up on Gasser. Like the TJ, and one of the things about Gasser, man, not only have we seen him give up the runs, but he's given up a lot of hits too. And hits, you start piling up a lot of hits. And look, I know he faced St. Louis. That was St. Louis. Pittsburgh gave up 6 hits, only gave up a run. Then he gave up 10 to Miami, and they caught him sleeping. That was 5 runs, 4 earned. And I think with Chicago, if he gives up 6 hits against Chicago, TJ, I think a couple of those guys are coming home. So I love the Chicago offense today. Bellinger, Suzuki, Happ, all these guys. I think they've built a quality roster, and I really like these guys. So there you have it. Milwaukee facing Steele. Milwaukee's been a really good offense as well. How are you feeling about them? Versus a guy that I think we believe is a good pitcher, but is still working his way back.
I actually like Milwaukee. And I'm, for what it's worth, I'm not positive I won't play Steele yet. I might include Steele in the pool if we get that situation like I talked about earlier of 40% Lance Lynn, 30% Joe Ryan, 30% Charlie Morton, and I'll just play all of these other guys. He would be one of the other guys I would play. Having said that, Contreras, Yelich, Adames, even Bryce Perkins and Joey Ortiz, Gary Sanchez, 3,300. I wish we could play 2 of Sanchez and Contreras on DraftKings. We can't, but that's okay. I still like this team. I'll play some Churio. I hope we get Joey Ortiz in like a really good lineup spot. And then he'll be in one of my favorite one-offs on the slate. But I like this team quite a bit as a stack regardless.
Yeah, man, I think Milwaukee's a good stack. With Yelich back, I think it just really helps this offense. He's back up to 5,300. We've seen Bauers flashing, some power this season, obviously. Frelick, Perkins, all these guys. So I think this is a good team to stack. We've seen Contreras be really good. They've been playing a lot of Contreras and Gary Sanchez together. TJ, a whole lot of that recently. So if we're going to get Gary Sanchez at 3,300, I think he's a big-time play today. Wanted to call him out. We may hear his name again before the day is out. Closing out the early slate, folks, it's the Dodgers. It's the New York Mets. Dodgers are heading into Citi Field. We've got Stone versus McGill, or McGill versus Stone. How are we feeling about Mr. Stone at 8,400 against a Mets offense?
I don't think I need Gavin Stone in this spot. He's pitched some pretty good games, but at 8,400, I just don't know if the upside is there. Having said that, this is a guy that's been able to eat things up pretty quick. It's like I said, if he's going to be 5% owned and we get Charlie Morton $200 more at 30, then maybe I will go to some pivots with him. Not a big strikeout guy, really good ground ball guy. probably is going to get you 15. I just don't think there's really much chance he gets you 25.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Yeah. Here we go. Other side of this game. We've got Miguel against the Dodgers. Look, man, any other spot I might actually consider Miguel. I think this is I think it's a hard pass.
Hard pass, and the Dodgers against him are in the same tier as Coors and the Braves.
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe Cubs.
Yeah, I can agree with that. So we're not playing Stone. We're not playing McGill. I think we're definitely playing the Dodgers offense, even in a bad ballpark. How are you feeling about the Dodgers?
Definitely playing the Dodgers offense. Shohei Ohtani is probably going to be the best bat on the slate, not named Jose Ramirez in terms of raw points. And it's the full stack of the Dodgers. There's not much else to say. You play any of them. Maybe not Miguel Rojas, but you play anybody else not named Miguel Rojas. You throw them in your stack. They've been disappointing more often than not this year. But the upside is still absolutely there. Throw Andy Pages in as my favorite cheap option to make the stack work.
Yep, absolutely. Love the stack, TJ. And the Dodgers, one of the things I will say about this Dodgers lineup is it's very top heavy. Like, you've got to pay for Smith, you've got to pay for Ohtani or Freeman, you've got to pay for Betts. Muncie's obviously out right now. And, you had to pay for Muncie. But, TJ, they've had cheap bats that you could have worked in and out of this lineup all season long. And that's one of the beauties of the Dodgers, right? Like, yeah, you got to pay up for some of these guys, but then everybody else is under 4K. Pages, Outman, Hayward is back, Kiki Hernandez. Even Chris Taylor's been getting some hits here recently, TJ, and he's got 100% strikeout rate. I'm kidding, but my larger point is that there's so many cheaper bats that you could work in with the big ones. So really like this team. New York Mets, while we don't want to play Stone, I'm not thrilled about the Mets offense. How are you feeling about the Mets, TJ?
No, in MME, they're a team that I'll include a few stacks of just because they got some good bats. Alonso, Lindor, Nimmo, Marte, DJ Stewart, or Harrison Bader. I'll have a couple of those stacks in 150, and by a couple, I actually mean a couple. I mean like 2 or 3, but that'd be it. It's not a good park. It's a ground ball pitcher. I'm good on the Mets.
Yep, same here. And TJ, we have come to the end of the slate. It is time to play the morning grind game. Pitcher below 8K to get 6 or more strikeouts. TJ, who you got?
Is there anybody that can do it other than Lance Lynn? I don't want to pick him. Justin Steele is getting 8 strikeouts. Will, he's going to do it.
Listen. I can't argue with it. I like the Justin Steele call. For me, TJ, below 8K, I'm going to roll out Lance Lynn and hope that he doesn't see 5 lefties. Here we go. Over 8K, who's our bust today? 15 or less fantasy points.
Gavin Stone.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think if I had to go with the guy, I'm actually going to go Joe Ryan. I'm going all the way up top. And for what it's worth, I think a bust for Joe Ryan on this slate is like 17 fantasy points. But 15 is the one. I could have easily went Charlie Morton, but I think Charlie Morton is able to control this offense a little bit today. Here we go. Next up, favorite hitter under 6K or over 4K to hit a home run. Sorry, over 4K to hit a home run.
Favorite homer play today, I think I'm going to go with, let's go Ellie De La Cruz.
Yeah, I like that call a ton. There are several guys that I like on this slate today, TJ, but I'm going to stick with the guy that I feel like I have played a ton, Vinny Pasquantino. That's who I'm going with today. All right, TJ, favorite hitter under 4K to get 2 or more hits.
Let's go Andy Pages.
Yeah, like that call with Pages. For me today, I told you guys you might see that name again. I'm going to go with Gary Sanchez at 3,300. I think that's a little bit too cheap for a guy that's been playing every day, and we've seen this Milwaukee offense really get going. Stack the score, 6 or more runs. TJ, who you got?
Cincinnati Reds.
I like that call, TJ. I'm going to try to go a little bit off the board here. Obviously, it's only a few games. I'm going to go with the Chicago Cubs. I like the Cubs today against Robert Gasser Can, patent pending by Mr. Gerb. TJ, any money line spreads, props that you like the day before?
There's not a lot that's been released on Prize Picks yet outside of and like the site that I use in Saskatchewan here, they never drop it early. And so like I can't do anything till the next day anyway, so I never check that one. But on Prize Picks, there's actually a lot that stands out with some pretty big discrepancies in the hitter fantasy score section. And so Rafael Devers more than 7.5 fantasy points. Not as big of discrepancies, but I like Bo Bichette more than 7.5. I like Bobby Witt Jr. more than 8.5 fantasy points. And then some of the other bigger ones, you can get Seiya Suzuki or Christopher Morel both over 6.5 fantasy points. Mookie Betts over 8, I like quite a bit. Bryce Harper over 8, I like quite a bit. And so there are some really strong ones earlier in the day that some star players not as high of fantasy point projections as they should have on Prize Picks.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there, TJ. And I think this is actually going to end up being a pretty good slate today. I don't like the slate for pitching as much, but I think there's a lot of offense. That's really what I'm trying. I think there's a lot of offense. And speaking of that offense, TJ, you gave out some props. What I want to do, I'm going to give something out here, TJ. I actually think this one is really neat. You probably won't see us get too many plus monies this good. I'm going to go with the Kansas City Royals against Ryan today. We're getting them at around plus 145 on Bet 365 and Bet MGM. I really like that. I think the Royals can win this game. I think the plus money is worth the investment here. You get them at plus 145, and then also TJ, you are getting later in the day, you're getting the Phillies versus the Giants with Blake Snell. I still don't think Blake Snell is great. I don't like Taijuan Walker, but I like getting the Phillies at minus 113. You can get that on Bet River. They're pretty much around minus 115 everywhere, TJ. And I think the Phillies are a much better team than the Giants. So I'm believing in the Phillies offense, and it's less about Walker and Snell and more about the Phillies offense against Snell, who just hasn't been right. I think that one's pretty good. Those are my two. And folks, this has been the Morning Grind. TJ, any final thoughts before we head out of here?
No, sir. That is it. I will be producing the early morning shows actually for Grinders Live and Crunch Time tomorrow. So people, if you're tuning in for those, you will see me bright and early once again.
All right, folks. This is Chief. That's also TJ. Thank you, guys. This has been the Morning Grind for May 27, 2024. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.